Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be giving some early 2024 NFL offseason predictions, mainly focused on the quarterbacks, the draft, and let's get right into it, starting with the number one overall pick. So what will the Chicago Bears do? A very unique position. They were certainly not the worst team in 2024, but they do own the number one overall pick, which makes the situation so weird. I do think they will draft Caleb Williams with the number one overall pick and trade Justin Fields. I'll talk about where I think Justin Fields will go in a second. But when it comes to Caleb Williams, the Bears at this point, if Justin Fields has a big season next year, they're going to have to give him a huge contract. I think it's a lot more attractive to have a young quarterback 5 years free before you have to pay him a ton of money and commit to him. So Caleb Williams, who's still a beast, I think some people do have some fatigue from Williams considering he was basically guaranteed the number one overall pick last year. We were talking about him, and this past season he didn't have the best year, but he's still a super QB prospect and extremely likely to be the number one overall pick. So I do think the Bears will trade Justin Fields probably for a second and a fifth round pick, and they will take Caleb Williams, not only because Caleb Williams has those 5 years before he's going to be due a new contract with the rookie contract, but I also just think they probably think at this point Caleb Williams is the better quarterback than Justin Fields, certainly the better passer than Fields, although I am very high on Justin Fields and his future as a dual threat QB. I'm guessing the Bears take Caleb Williams, and then possibly with their second pick in the first round, a lot of people think they'll take a receiver. I don't know about that. I mean, they already have DJ Moore. They've got Mooney. They might, but I'm not sure if there's going to be anyone available. Odunze might go inside of the top 7. At least I've seen a lot of mock drafts with him gone. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to go inside of the top 4. And then Malik Neighbors could also go inside of the top 6. So I'm not sure if they actually do take a receiver. It's not like a crazy need for them. Certainly, Chicago could decide to trade the number one overall pick, get some crazy picks, still draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You've got Justin Fields, and you would still have DJ Moore. That would be a crazy nucleus, but you would be putting a lot of faith on Justin Fields, and then if he plays well, you're going to have to give him a massive contract. So I think all of those things combined will cause Chicago to take Caleb Williams with the number one overall pick in the draft. And where does that leave Justin Fields? Well, I'm going to predict that Justin Fields gets traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, who are in desperate need of a QB. They tried Jimmy G. It didn't work out. He's kind of like a fringe starter. They need a legit quarterback. They do have some weapons on that team, especially Devontae Adams. We'll see what happens with Josh Jacobs. But yeah, to me, I think the Raiders go out, they nab Justin Fields, they give up a second and maybe a fourth or a fifth. I do not think Justin Fields will garner a first-round pick. Not that he's not good. I thought he had a really good end of the season, but just his situation right now, his overall NFL stats aren't the best. And again, he's in a spot where if he has one good season, he's gonna be getting a massive contract. So that lowers his trade value, as opposed to if he was on year 2 of his contract and you've got like 3 years to play with, that would be different. But I am going to predict Justin Fields gets traded to the Las Vegas Raiders, although he could also go to a number of places, including Seattle. You've also got the Atlanta Falcons involved in terms of him. When it comes to Russell Wilson, I'm going to say right now Russell Wilson goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin, there were some question marks surrounding his future with the Steelers. He's back. He's a veteran coach, and he wants a veteran QB. Pittsburgh, they're in a tough spot right now in a very hard division, the AFC North. I think they go the veteran route. Can they really stick with Kenny Pickett at this point? I mean, think about it. It's not like they've got too much invested into Kenny Pickett. This was not a top 5 pick. This was a late first-round pick in a horrible, watered-down QB class. They could very easily move on from Kenny Pickett. Maybe he is in some type of QB battle with Russell Wilson, but I do think Mike Tomlin, the veteran coach, he's going to want a veteran QB, and Russell Wilson at this point, I don't know if he's really a game manager, but certainly he's kind of a mid-tier, just a mid-quarterback later in his years. Maybe he can have a resurgence with George Pickens. We know how great George Pickens was towards the end of the year for the Steelers going on a bit of a run and making the playoffs. But I do think at this point, Russell Wilson will be their starting quarterback next year. Also, you're going to have the Falcons possibly interested in Russell Wilson, along with a few other teams, maybe a team like the Raiders, but these are just my predictions. And then when it comes to the number 2 overall pick right now, the chalk will say the Commanders will draft Drake Maye. And I really think it's going to go back and forth. I mean, just for perspective, when it comes to these draft rumors, there was a huge rumor last year that Will Levis, like 3 days before the draft, was going to be the number 1 overall pick. Huge rumor, and it tilted the odds. People were betting on Will Levis to go number 1 overall. He ended up falling out of the first round. What I'm saying is you're going to see a bunch of movement. You're going to see, I'm sure, throughout the process, probably at the Combine, Jaden Daniels is now the favorite to go number 2. Jaden Daniels might become the favorite to go number 1. This is just what happens, but by the time the draft comes around, I do think the Commanders will go chalk. They will not move up to the number 1 overall pick, although you could see a situation where if the Bears do decide to keep Justin Fields and the Commanders are obsessed with Caleb Williams, they might trade a future first-round pick just to move from 2 to 1 to secure Caleb Williams. And then at that point, if you are Chicago, you could just draft Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 2 overall pick and take an extra first-round pick for your troubles just from moving to 1 to 2 if you decide to keep Justin Fields. So there's an interesting situation there, but right now I will go ahead and predict that Drake Maye will go to the Commanders. I could see Jaden Daniels going there. I'm a little concerned about Jaden Daniels' weight. He is rail skinny, and Maye at this point profiles like a Justin Herbert type QB. I mean, he has the stature, he's got the arm. I think he goes number 2 overall, and that would make Jaden Daniels be the number 3 overall pick by the New England Patriots. I'm extremely confident. Obviously, the top 3 picks will all be quarterbacks because the top 3 teams, I guess you could make the argument Chicago might not need a QB, but I'm guessing they all take QBs. The only wrinkle would be Chicago deciding they like Justin Fields, and then you would get a big change because Chicago would be trading down inevitably. And then it's who decides to trade up and what would it cost to possibly get the number 1 overall pick. Imagine Atlanta trying to trade up. See, this is why it's so bad to win meaningless games. Like Atlanta being in the NFC South, winning too many just meaningless games. Now they're stuck at the 8th overall pick. Imagine if they had the 2nd or 3rd overall pick, they'd be in an amazing spot to really, take an elite quarterback, but they're going to have to give up basically their entire future if they want to move from 8 to 3, from 8 to 2, or from 8 to 1. So right now, I do think it goes probably chalk, where Caleb Williams goes number 1, Drake Maye goes number 2, and Jaden Daniels from LSU, the Heisman Trophy winner, would go number 3. In terms of those predictions. And then when it comes to some wildcard QBs, JJ McCarthy, if Justin Fields does not go to the Raiders, I could see the Raiders taking JJ McCarthy or Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. in the first round. It just seems like a Raiders move to take one of those QBs. But I think J.J. McCarthy is a good fit in Minnesota. Now, the Vikings may be able to re-sign Kirk Cousins. I know he loves Minnesota, the Minneapolis area. Maybe he signs there for 1 or 2 more years, but he's getting up there in age. They need a future quarterback option, and maybe it's J.J. McCarthy, whether he goes late in the first round, early second round. Maybe someone trades up for him at the end of the first round. I'm guessing that's where he'll probably end up going. I think Bo Nix will go above Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr. had a bad Senior Bowl week. I did not like his film towards the end of last year. Both of those quarterbacks, Penix Jr. and Bo Nix, the age factor is against them. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of that, but they're both very old. They both have to be 50-year guys using the extra pandemic year there. And Bo Nix has started pretty much every game, every single year he's been in college. It's crazy. He's got a lot of experience. I think he could do all right in the NFL. I don't think he's going to be a crazy elite talent or anything like that, but I would imagine Bo Nix would probably go towards the middle of the first round. J.J. McCarthy could be a fringe first-round pick, and I do think Michael Penix Jr. will drop out of the first round completely. Those would be my predictions right now. But either way, those are just some, draft predictions, what's going to happen with free agency and Justin Fields. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.